When Ajahn Chah, the renowned Thai Buddhist master, was approaching death, a visitor asked if he was afraid. With a serene smile, he replied, "Afraid? No. Dying is like taking off a tight shoe." His students reported that in his final days, he faced death not with fear, but with a profound peace that transformed everyone around him. What allows some people to face death not only without fear, but with joy? What wisdom might they possess that we can learn? Welcome to the Noble Wisdom Path, where we explore life's deepest questions through ancient wisdom. Today, we're discovering how embracing death, rather than fearing it, can be the key to living with unprecedented freedom and peace. In our modern world, death has become something we avoid discussing, planning for, or even acknowledging. We hide it behind hospital doors, speak of it in hushed tones, and spend billions trying to delay it. This collective denial has created a culture where the fear of death silently shapes our lives, limiting our joy and freedom. But what if our fear of death isn't inevitable? What if it's simply the result of misunderstanding what death truly is? In Buddhism, death isn't viewed as an enemy to be conquered or a tragedy to be avoided at all costs. Instead, it's recognized as an integral part of life's natural rhythm, as essential as birth, as natural as the changing seasons, as necessary as sleep after wakefulness. The Buddha taught that our suffering comes not from death itself, but from our resistance to it, our clinging to permanence in an impermanent world. When we deeply understand the true nature of existence, that everything is in constant flux, that nothing remains unchanged, our relationship with death transforms. Today, we'll explore how ancient Buddhist wisdom, supported by modern science, offers a path to freedom from the fear of death. We'll discover 5 transformative practices that can help you not only make peace with mortality, but use this awareness to live with greater presence, meaning, and joy. Are you ready to transform your relationship with death, and by extension, with life itself? What does a life shaped by the fear of death look like? For many of us, it's so normal we don't even recognize it. It's the voice that says someday to our deepest desires while we pursue security and comfort today. It's the anxiety that rises when we feel a strange pain in our body. It's the endless distraction we seek to avoid confronting our mortality. It's the desperate accumulation of possessions, achievements, and experiences, as if we could somehow outrun the inevitable. Dr. Emily Chun, neuroscientist and meditation practitioner, explains, the brain's fear response to death is powerful. When we contemplate mortality, the amygdala, our brain's alarm system, activates, triggering stress hormones that put us in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. Living with chronic death anxiety means living in a subtle but persistent state of stress. Sarah, a clinical psychologist specializing in death anxiety, adds, I see patients whose lives are severely constrained by thanatophobia, the fear of death. They avoid travel, new experiences, deep relationships, anything that reminds them of life's fragility. Paradoxically, in trying to avoid death, they stop fully living. This fear doesn't just diminish our joy, it actually prevents us from living authentically. When we're afraid of death, we make decisions based on fear rather than love, security rather than purpose, avoidance rather than engagement. We become spectators in our own lives, watching from the sidelines rather than fully participating. Now imagine a different way of living, one where death is not denied, but embraced as a natural part of existence. What might that look like? It's waking up each morning with profound gratitude for another day of consciousness. It's making choices based on meaning rather than fear. It's loving deeply without the desperate clinging that comes from fear of loss. It's speaking your truth because you understand that time is precious. It's finding extraordinary beauty in ordinary moments because you recognize their impermanence. Ajahn Chah described this state beautifully. If you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will have complete peace. Michael, a former tech executive who faced death through a heart attack at 39, shares his experience. Before my near-death experience, I was constantly striving, never satisfied, always postponing joy for some future achievement. Now, I understand that this moment is all we truly have. This shift hasn't made me passive, quite the opposite. I'm more engaged, more present, more alive than ever before. I still have goals, but I don't postpone living while pursuing them. When we accept death as part of life, we paradoxically become more fully alive. Colors seem more vivid, relationships more precious, time more valuable. We stop postponing joy. We stop living for some imagined future and start living fully in the present. We discover that freedom from the fear of death is freedom to truly live. So how do we move from fear to acceptance? Buddhist wisdom offers 5 powerful practices that can transform our relationship with death, and by extension, with life itself. Understanding impermanence. The Buddha taught that everything in existence is in a constant state of flux, arising, changing, and passing away. Nothing remains the same from one moment to the next. This principle of impermanence, or anicca, is not just a philosophical concept, but a truth to be directly experienced. Look at your own body. The cells that composed it 7 years ago have almost entirely been replaced. The thoughts and emotions you experienced yesterday are gone today. Even mountains, which seem permanent to us, are slowly eroding and changing form. When we deeply understand impermanence, we see that death is not an aberration or failure, but simply part of this natural flow. Just as we don't consider it tragic when winter follows autumn, we can learn to see death as a natural transition rather than a catastrophe. Try this mindfulness practice. For 1 week, at the end of each day, reflect on 3 things that changed during your day. Perhaps a mood that arose and passed, a conversation that shifted your perspective, or a physical sensation that came and went. Notice how nothing stays the same, how everything is in constant flux. Gradually extend this awareness to larger changes in your life and in the world around you. This simple practice helps us develop comfort with change and impermanence, releasing attachment to self. Much of our fear of death stems from attachment to our sense of self, the belief that we are fixed, separate entities. The Buddha challenged this view with the teaching of anatta, or non-self, which reveals that what we call self is actually a fluid process rather than a fixed entity. This doesn't mean we don't exist, but rather that we exist interdependently, constantly changing, without a fixed essence. We are more like rivers than rocks, a continuous flow rather than a static object. The principle of praditya samutpada, or dependent origination, further illuminates this truth. Nothing exists in isolation. Every phenomenon arises in dependence upon multiple causes and conditions. Your body is made of elements from the earth, your thoughts shaped by countless influences, your very existence dependent on innumerable factors. When we loosen our grip on the idea of a separate, permanent self, the fear of death naturally diminishes. If there is no fixed me to hold on to, what is there to lose? Practice self-inquiry by asking, what parts of me are permanent? What remains unchanged throughout my life? Notice how even your most fundamental characteristics, your body, thoughts, beliefs, preferences, have changed over time. This isn't cause for alarm, but for wonder at the dynamic, interconnected nature of existence. Death awareness meditation. Rather than avoiding thoughts of death, Buddhist practice encourages us to contemplate it mindfully. Maranasati, or death awareness meditation, involves regular, intentional reflection on the reality of death. This might sound morbid to Western ears, but it's actually deeply life-affirming. As the Buddha taught, of all mindfulness meditations, that on death is supreme. Why? Because nothing clarifies our priorities and awakens us to the preciousness of life, quite like awareness of its finite nature. Here's a simple 5-minute Maranasati practice. Sit comfortably with your back straight. Take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Then, gently repeat these traditional contemplations. Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. What is the most important thing right now? Imagine each breath could be your last. How would you want your mind to be in your final moments? Cultivate that quality now. Ask yourself, if today were my last day, what would matter most? How would I want to spend it? Let the answers arise naturally. End by generating gratitude for this moment of awareness. This practice isn't about generating fear, but about using death awareness as a compass to orient your life toward what truly matters. Living fully with mindfulness. Mindfulness, the practice of present moment awareness without judgment, is a powerful antidote to death anxiety. When we're fully present, we're not projecting into a feared future or ruminating on the past. We're simply experiencing life as it unfolds, moment by moment. 3 years ago, when I was 39 years old, I was CEO of a fast-growing tech startup in Silicon Valley. My life revolved around work, meetings, endless emails, and constant pressure. I prided myself on sleeping only 4 hours a night and working 7 days a week. I thought I was building a legacy, but in reality, I was building a time bomb. One afternoon, during a board meeting, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. At first I ignored it, but then the pain became so intense I couldn't speak. I was having a major heart attack. As I lay in the ambulance, with doctors trying to keep me conscious, I experienced a moment of complete clarity. I was about to die, and all I could think about were the things I hadn't done, the conversations I hadn't had with my daughter, the peaceful moments I hadn't enjoyed with my wife, the sunsets I had missed for unmissable meetings. Fortunately, I survived, but that experience completely transformed my relationship with death and life. During recovery, I stumbled upon a book about Buddhist meditation and began practicing Maranasati, death contemplation meditation. Strangely, rather than making me fearful, consciously facing death each day liberated me. I began living as if each day mattered, because it truly does. Now, 3 years later, I still run my company, but in a completely different way. I make time for family, I meditate daily, and I've learned to appreciate each moment. I no longer fear death, because I've understood that the best way to prepare for death is to live fully. As the Buddha taught, when we accept impermanence, we find freedom. This practice of dying before you die, facing your mortality consciously, can be profoundly liberating. It strips away the non-essential and reveals what truly matters. Try living each day as if it were your last, not in a hedonistic sense, but with the clarity and presence that comes from recognizing life's preciousness. Cultivating compassion and connection. Fear of death often stems from a sense of isolation, the feeling that I am separate from everything else and therefore vulnerable to loss. Buddhist wisdom offers a powerful antidote, cultivating compassion and recognizing our profound interconnection with all life. When we develop loving kindness, metta, toward ourselves and others, we expand beyond the limited sense of self that fears death. We begin to identify with something larger, the vast web of life that continues beyond our individual existence. Sarah, the clinical psychologist, shares, "In my work with terminal patients, I've observed that those who cultivate strong connections to loved ones, to community, to nature, to something beyond themselves, face death with much less fear. They intuitively understand that while their individual form will end, the love and connection they've cultivated continues." Practice extending loving kindness to yourself, to loved ones, to strangers, and even to those you find difficult. As your circle of compassion widens, notice how the boundaries of self begin to soften, and with them, the grip of death anxiety. These 5 practices, understanding impermanence, releasing attachment to self, death awareness meditation, living fully with mindfulness, and cultivating compassion, offer a comprehensive approach to transforming our relationship with death. They aren't quick fixes, but rather lifelong practices that gradually uproot fear and cultivate freedom. Modern science is beginning to validate what Buddhist practitioners have known for centuries. Our relationship with death profoundly impacts our mental health and quality of life. Dr. Emily Chin's research on thanatophobia, death anxiety, reveals fascinating insights. Brain scans show that people with high death anxiety have hyperactive amygdalas, the brain's fear center, and reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs rational thinking. Essentially, their brains are stuck in a fear response. However, her studies of long-term meditators show a different pattern. After 8 weeks of regular mindfulness and death contemplation practices, we see remarkable changes. The amygdala calms down, while the prefrontal cortex becomes more active. Even more interesting, we see increased activity in brain regions associated with compassion and interconnection. Near-death experience research also offers compelling insights. Many who have come close to death report a profound shift in perspective, decreased fear of death, greater appreciation for life, and a deeper sense of meaning and purpose. This convergence of ancient wisdom and modern science gives us both the why and the how of transforming our relationship with death, offering a path forward that is both spiritually profound and scientifically sound. As we've explored today, death need not be our enemy. By understanding impermanence, releasing attachment to a fixed self, practicing death awareness, living mindfully, and cultivating compassion, we can transform our relationship with mortality. Remember Ajahn Chah's words, "Dying is like taking off a tight shoe, a release, not a tragedy." When we embrace death as part of life's natural rhythm, we paradoxically become more fully alive. The Buddha taught that those who are mindful of death awaken fully, while those who ignore death remain asleep. Today, right now, you have the opportunity to awaken, to live with the clarity, freedom, and joy that comes from making peace with mortality. I invite you to begin your journey toward fearless living with just one practice from what we've discussed today. Perhaps start with the simple 5-minute death awareness meditation, or the daily reflection on impermanence. If you found value in today's exploration, please support the Noble Wisdom Path by subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with someone who might benefit. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these timeless teachings. Join our community of mindful seekers. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share your reflections in the comments below. Until next time, may you live fully, love deeply, and embrace each moment with the freedom that comes from making peace with death.